Is George Bush going to be on vacation in Crawford, Texas? What we need to do is turn up the heat on George Bush and hold him responsible and make this president change course. It is the only way he will change course. He will never change course unless he's made to do it.
Do you disagree with these other Democratic candidates?
Totally. It's just that simple. 4 of these people here will say that it's George Bush's war. It was facilitated by the Democrats. They brought the resolution up. One of them co-authored it here, standing here. And so it's sure it's George Bush's war, but it's a Democrats' war also.
Each one of the candidates, whether they have been taking campaign contributions from the health insurance companies.
It's an answer to Walter from Pensacola. Walter, you're concerned whether or not I'm taking money from the healthcare industry. God, not that I know of, unless they're sending it in small dribbles. All I ask for people is to give me what they spent at the movies the last time they went to the movies, or what they spent for a latte yesterday. But Walter, if you're asking about the other candidates, let me tell you, 2 things you got to do. Watch for politics as usual and follow the money. Let's take Edwards as an example. He's got a big health care plan. He gave $1.7 million in investment in Fortress Investment Fund. Fortress is the financial backer for Humana. Humana is the insurance company that was featured in Sicko as a predator on ordinary citizens. Now stop and back it up and realize that when Humana makes money from the profits of forcing people to buy insurance, then that the Fortress is going to make money, and then, of course, Edwards is going to make money. In the old days, we used to call this conflict of interest. Right now, we call this politics as usual. Walter, just follow the money, and you'll see what's happening and what you can expect after they get elected. There's information coming out, Senator Durbin, Mr. Strum in his book, that really points out that these people knew that there was 2 sets of intelligence going on at the same time, and they made a political decision to vote the way they voted.
On the tools to do this with, you want to have the president criminally indicted.
Well, yeah, well, only if he doesn't end the war. Well, stop and think now. They'll say, well, Hillary is classic. Oh, we don't have the votes. What do you mean don't have the votes? You go get the votes by the scruff of the neck. And
they're not there now.
They are there now. They are there now, George, and how you get them is real simple. You turn around and you have a vote on cloture every single day, 7 days a week. You cut out the August recess, and then when it comes back and the president vetoes this law, you turn around and have a veto override every single day.
The strategy does come from your own personal experience, doesn't it?
That's right.
Vietnam,
filibustering, being tough.
You had a one-man filibuster against the draft.
That's right. 5 months, and there's no draft in the United States today, and I'm proud that George Bush does not have the boots on the ground to invade Iran.
You also read the Pentagon Papers into the congressional record.
The papers prove that for 20 years, and certainly for the last 10 years, we have been victims of our Southeast Asia policy, not masters of it.
In you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I think that I was treated like a skunk at the party back then. And of course now we look back, well, my God, this person showed courage. I could have gone to jail.
It was an emotional time.
Leadership, and the Iacocca's title for his book is Where the Leader's Gone. Well, George, this leader is back, and I'm a tough leader, and I'm going to hold all of these other people accountable. They want to be president, let them show their bona fides to be president.
You said that no person who voted for the war is qualified to be president.
Do you think someone who voted to authorize the president to go to war should be president of the United States?
Not at all, because it's a moral criteria. Stop and think. We have killed more Americans than was done on the 11th of September.
When you
More
say-
Americans died because of their decision. That disqualifies them for president. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they don't have moral judgment.
And hold him responsible and make this president change course.
And that's very important when you become president.
That knocks out Hillary Clinton. That knocks out Joe Biden.
That's right.
That knocks out Chris Dodd.
That's right.
That knocks out John Edwards.
That's right. And it'll knock out Obama if he doesn't shape up and help end the war now. Because if he wants to show he's a leader, you do it in the Senate where he is. He's got power.
He voted against the funding.
Whoa. Hey, they voted 4 times. He and Hillary voted for this vote that meant nothing on a water bill. What does that mean? That means you're standing there and this is a symbolic vote. Hypocrisy is what it is, George. Hypocrisy. People are dying and they're interested in a symbolic vote? Give me a break.
The strategy you followed in the 1970s did eventually end the war. You cut off funding, the war ended, but a lot of Democrats fear that the party paid a price, and it kept them out of the White House for years.
Well, George, you just put your finger on it. What's more important, getting office or doing the moral thing and stop people from dying? I'll tell you, if that's the sacrifice we got to pay to stop these Americans from dying and killing these Iraqis, I'll pay that
But
sacrifice
the war's not
every day of the week. I'll tell you, John, it's a set-up question. Our soldiers died in Vietnam in vain. You can now, John, go to Hanoi and get a Baskin-Robbins ice cream cone. That's what you can do. And now we have most favored nation trade. What did all these people die for? What are they dying for right now in Iraq every single day? Let me tell you, there's only one thing worse than a soldier dying in vain. It's more soldiers dying in vain.
When George W. Bush took office in 2000, he brought with him Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and Deputy Secretary for Defense Paul Wolfowitz. Paul Wolfowitz, in particular, had long been recognized as the intellectual force behind a radical neoconservative fringe of the Republican Party. For years, Wolfowitz had been advancing the idea that the United States should reconsider its commitments to international treaties, international law, and multilateral organizations such as the United Nations. A radical plan for American military domination first surfaced during the administration of George H.W. Bush. In 1992, Paul Wolfowitz, working in the Department of Defense, was asked to write the first draft of a new national security strategy, a document entitled the Defense Planning Guidance. The most controversial elements of what would later come to be known as the Wolfowitz Doctrine were that the United States should dramatically increase defense spending, that it should be willing to take preemptive military action, and that it should be willing to use military force unilaterally, with or without allies. This new reliance on military force was necessary, according to Wolfowitz, to prevent the emergence of any future or potential rivals to American power, and to secure access to vital resources, especially Persian Gulf oil. In 2000, they would craft yet another proposed national security strategy, this one published by a right-wing think tank calling itself the Project for the New American Century. At its core, the document revived the Wolfowitz Doctrine. It called on the United States to increase the military budget by up to $100 billion, to deny other nations the use of outer space, and to adopt a more aggressive and unilateral foreign policy that would allow the United States to act offensively and preemptively in the world. The elimination of states like Iraq figured prominently in this grand vision.
Iacocca has a book out, bestseller, Where Have the Leaders Gone? Well, there's none around today.
There aren't.
And I'm back, and I'm prepared to lead.